Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. Today I'm going to be telling you about the books that I read during the month of August. And I will say that August was a bit of a slower month for me. I still did pretty good. I completed 11 books, 2 of which were graphic novels, young adult graphic novels. So not as much as I normally do, but I'm still fine with how much I read. It doesn't matter what the number is ultimately, because I had a great reading month, I think, overall. So I'm going to tell you about all the books that I read, and then at the end I'm going to tell you if any of them are making it into the favorites basket for the year. So I'm going to start off with the 4 books that I read because of a read along or a group read or some such thing like that. Every quarter on my channel, I host a read along of a Christian nonfiction book. And in August, we read The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. I can't believe I had never read this. I definitely really enjoyed this apologetics book, which is a look at Christianity, at Jesus Christ and the Bible, and a whole bunch of different things, but ultimately the life of Jesus, and was he real and was he God? And this journalist who had formerly been an atheist until he began doing research about Jesus became a Christian and shared some of the conversations that he had with brilliant scholars from around the United States who have been studying different things like the resurrection and the crucifixion and the Gospels, and is the Bible true and is there evidence for it? And he breaks it down. The introduction to each chapter was a comparison in some way to a court case and how things were handled in court, because Lee Strobel himself was a legal journalist and just had a lot of experience in that world. And so he definitely breaks it down. It's not as dry as I was expecting. I was expecting the writing to be a lot more dry than it actually was. I was very interested. And while I didn't necessarily learn new things about my faith, I feel like my foundation, I feel like as a Christian, I tend to be much more experiential. My walk with God and my relationship with God feels like it's a lot more based on my experiences and my emotions and how I feel. But that's not all that it is, obviously. But this book presented facts and evidence and hard information, like solid information that gives a totally logical, scientific view to faith things. And I really appreciated that. I feel like I have a stronger foundation. It addresses things that a lot of skeptics bring up. Yeah, I just feel like this was a fantastic read, and I gave it 5 stars. And I really appreciate the ladies who also joined me in this conversation. Chloe from Always Booked, Oshina from Gotta Read 'Em All, Jeanette from Jane Reads, T from A Quiet Kind of Life, and Christy from Christy A. Cole. Thank you, ladies, for joining me in these conversations throughout the month. Then I also had our middle grade March quarterly book club in August, and we together read Tree Table Book by Lois Lowry. This was a fantastic multi-generational friendship story between 2 girls named Sophie. One of them happens to be in her 80s, and one of them is a young preteen. And I thought that Lois Lowry did such a good job packing a punch in this short little novel. She really developed these 2 characters. Young Sophie's reactions and thought processes really felt like 11, 12-year-old girl, and older Sophie was just beautiful in the way that they developed their friendship with each other. I enjoyed our conversation as we discussed this live on the Middle Grade March channel, and I really enjoyed reading this book, and it was another fantastic read that I gave 4 stars to. The third read-along that I had in the month of August was the 3rd book in the Ember and the Ashes series, A Reaper at the Gates. I absolutely love this series, and I was so excited to dive into this book 3 because books 1 and 2 was a reread for me, but I had never progressed into this 3rd book. And I really, really love this story. I love the 3 main characters, Elias, Helene, and Laia, and their stories progress throughout this novel. They each have struggles that they're dealing with. Their characters have such growth and continue to grow and struggle with things, and there's such depth in their character work, and the world is super interesting. The one thing that I didn't love maybe about this is the battle scene, but that's such a personal preference. I just don't love a battle scene ever in books. I don't seem to be able to understand it fully and grasp what's really going on. So I don't love that. But other than that, there was some interesting reveals, some surprise reveals in here. Things that make you think. Some of the side characters we get to know more about. I just really love this series, and I'm really enjoying being able to discuss it with all of you as well. So love this one. And then the fourth buddy read, group read that I did in the month of August was my Patreon book club book, which was Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. And unfortunately, of all of my group reads this month, this was my least favorite. I gave it 3 stars because it's a fun read and I'm glad that I finished it. Our narrator in here, Ernest, breaks the fourth wall almost continually throughout this book. And this is really a nod to kind of classic Golden Age mysteries, locked room mysteries. There's a whole scene at the end where everything gets revealed in the library and he goes through each person and kind of reveals all of their secrets. And I did like aspects of that. In this book, we are following Ernest and his family. They're at a ski resort for a sort of a reunion because his brother Michael is being released from prison where he's been for the last few years because Ernest basically ratted him out. So some of the family are not very thrilled about that. We're in this snowy setting and people keep dying. And we learn about how everyone in his family has killed someone. And so it kind of jumps around. It felt a little disjointed and kind of bouncy. I never really got into the flow of it. There were often these conversations that were being had, these long dialogue sections that I couldn't fully wrap my mind around what was happening. And I would have to re-listen to it. I did listen to it on audiobook. And I would have to re-listen multiple times. I don't ever have to do that. I slowed the audio down quite a bit from my normal speed, which is fine. I often do that when there's an accent, and this is Australian. But I normally don't have to do that with an Australian accent. So it just was not my favorite. I gave it 3 stars. I'm glad that I finished it. I'm not yet convinced I'm going to continue with the series. I do have everyone on this train as suspect. So part of me wants to give it another chance because I do have the Christmas one as well, but part of me isn't sure. So let me know if you've read the next one. Does it get better for you or is it very similar? I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. And then I have these 5 books that were on my August TBR for my Flip and Roll TBR. And unfortunately, I didn't get to all these. I forgot to share my update in my September TBR video, but I did not get to The Book Lovers Library or What You Are Looking For Is in the Library or Monster Tree. So these 3 books will continue to live on my rotating shelf now as ones that I would like to try to get to by the end of the year because I try to keep the ones that have been on a TBR in front of my eyes so that I hopefully will get around to reading them. That is always the hope. For now, I will set those aside and tell you about the 2 on my Flip and Roll TBR that I did read. Right at the beginning of the month, I read A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. In this one, we follow Cordelia, who knows that her mother is kind of strange. Their house doesn't have any doors. She's not allowed to have any secrets from her mother. And she's definitely greatly manipulated and abused emotionally by her mother. She doesn't fully understand that her mom is a sorceress. We as a reader do know that because if Cordelia steps out of line at all, her mom puts her under some kind of spell where she's only able to, where the mother is able to control her body, her mouth, her words, her actions, everything. And so Cordelia has lived under the thumb of her horrible mother for quite a long time. Well, mom is on a hunt to find a new sugar daddy, basically. I don't remember what happened to the one who was providing for them this lifestyle that she wants to live, but she's on the hunt. So she and Cordelia move into the home of this older brother and sister duo. And the mom is determined to get this man to fall in love with her by whatever means necessary. Well, the sister of this duo befriends Cordelia and we kind of go from there. I really loved the fairy tale vibes of this, the good versus evil. I loved the journey that the plot took us on. I also loved the look at Cordelia as a young person who has been abused for years and years and the effects of that and how it impacts her new relationships and friendships and her thought processes and everything about her life. It was a really good look at what somebody who has been abused for that long in the way that she has, how they might respond and act. So I thought that this was really interesting. It was darker and deeper than I was expecting, but I really, really enjoyed it. It also it carried that fairy tale vibe all the way through. So although it did get pretty dark at times, it also was really good story. And I think this is a loose retelling of The Goose Girl as well, from what I've heard. So I didn't catch that as much while I was reading it. There are geese involved as the story goes on, but I kind of missed that it was a retelling. I was just enjoying every second of it while I read it. Then the other book that I did read from my TBR for the month was Eddie Winston is Looking for Love by Marianne Cronin. I loved this book. We follow Eddie, who's a 90-something-year-old man who has never been kissed. And Eddie is just a delight of a man. He's a gentleman and he's a romantic, but he has always just been kind of on his own. He works at a thrift store, and at his job, he kind of holds on to things that he thinks people might regret leaving at the thrift store, and is able to often return them to those people if they come back looking for them, because he had saved it, because he can kind of get a vibe. He reads people really well. One day he meets this young lady who comes in, drops off a bag of stuff that belonged to her boyfriend, fiance maybe, who just passed away. And so he holds on to some of the things for her, and they kind of strike up this friendship. And this girl, once she learns that Eddie has never been kissed, is determined to help him find love. And so she puts him on an elderly dating site, and their friendship just blossoms. And it's really special the way they get to know each other, and the way Eddie helps this young grieving girl process and work through her grief a little bit. I just loved their friendship, and I loved the story, and I loved Eddie. This was a beautiful book, and I gave it 5 stars. And then, as always, I had a patron pick for the month, and that was How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin, another mystery. And I really enjoyed this one. I think maybe reading this one first deterred me from liking Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone, because I definitely liked this one a lot better. This starts out with 3 young girls, teenagers, go to like a county fair or something and get their fortunes told. And our main character receives a fortune that she is fully convinced is real. And and part of that fortune is that she's going to be murdered. And so Frances, this girl, kind of lives her life building up suspicion for everybody around her. She's convinced, as I said, that her fortune is real. And so she starts kind of breaking down the different parts of the fortune and what could these things mean, and collect secrets about the people around her and the people in her town. And we follow, the main part of the story is when Frances is much older, and then we're getting flashbacks to this time when they were all teenagers together. Okay, I had to go shut the window because the neighbor's having somebody work on her car, and the driveway is right outside my window, and I kept hearing them. Okay, so Frances thinks the fortune is real, and it affects her life greatly and the lives of those around her. And then it turns out that Frances actually is murdered. So Annie is, in the present day, Frances's niece, and she's involved in the will. And part of the will is this competition. Whoever can solve the murder first will receive the large part of the inheritance. And so Annie is on the case, but she's up against this other guy who knows all of the people involved and has insights and ins with the different people in town, whereas Annie is coming into it as an outsider because she never really met Frances in person. So then we follow Annie and her attempts to solve Frances's murder. I loved this. I was invested all the way through. I liked Annie. I liked Frances. No, I didn't love Frances. She was frustrating, but I really appreciated both timelines in this one. I thought they were both necessary. I was invested in both of them. And I did do this as a buddy read with a handful of my patrons as well, which was really fun. I really enjoyed this. I think I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Fun mystery there. Another mystery that I read for my NetGalley vlog, which I never ended up doing in August, but I did read a book off my gifted shelf that's also part of my NetGalley, which was Errands and Espionage by Sam Chishida. And unfortunately, this one did not work for me. I gave this one 3 stars. It's kind of set up to be along the similar veins as Finley Donovan. We follow this single mom who's got rambunctious children and an annoying ex-husband who's just the worst. And she gets roped into being a CIA agent because she looks like another CIA agent who is undercover, and she's basically a doppelganger for her. So she's roped into filling her role in this place where she worked and continuing this underground operation with zero experience, with zero street smarts. Like this lady. It was almost a comedy of errors, which I said in my Neck Alley vlog as well. I just didn't think the humor was super funny. I mean, it was lighthearted and I could see that. There's also a romance that starts to blossom in here and I didn't believe it. It just was almost instantaneous. This attraction was instantaneous, which is fine. You could be attracted to someone. I get that. But there was no chemistry on page. There was no good banter between them. I didn't understand how their feelings were growing for each other as they did in this book. So I didn't love that about it. It was just an okay story. Good palate cleanser. I finished it, but I didn't really love it. And then I had a couple random things that didn't get attached to any goals or anything like that. But I read on my drive, I finished reading The Decluttering at the Speed of Life by Dana K. White, who is a declutter person that one of my patrons recommended to me ages ago. And I did start the book a couple of months ago, but then the hold got returned at on my Libby app. And finally it came back and I was able to finish that on my drive up to New York for my mom's birthday a couple weekends ago. And I really have been on a declutter kick lately. This book has helped with it. And also the Space Maker Method, which is a channel that I now follow on YouTube, and I love watching her help people declutter their homes. So I'm on a kick right now. But Dana's book, Decluttering at the Speed of Life, I love her method because it doesn't make a mess of your house. You are not pulling everything out. You are not making things worse before they get better. You're just starting with one area and you're going through her 5 steps, asking yourselves the questions that she puts forward in the book. And you can stop at any point and things will immediately be better than they were when you started. There's no like get worse before it gets better in her method, which I do really appreciate. I'm enjoying watching The Space Maker, but I do also appreciate another option, which is not pulling everything out and making a huge mess and then you're stuck in it. I did feel like the book got a bit repetitive because she addresses those same 5 steps for different rooms of the house. So it did start to feel, okay, we're getting it, but they kind of get stuck in your head and that's the point, I think. And she does address early on that it's going to feel repetitive, but you can revisit each of those chapters individually if you wanted to. I don't own the book, but I thought it was a good listen and it inspired me to do some decluttering. So I guess it was a win, right? And the final 2 books I actually have checked out from the library. I did not even know these existed until my conversation with the people who are reading An Ember in the Ashes series with Sarah and I, when we did the Torch Against the Night discussion. People brought up that there are graphic novels and I was like, what? So I immediately put them on hold at my library. And then this month I did read A Spark Within the Forge, which is Laya's backstory. And then also A Thief Among the Trees, which is Elias's backstory. It's not backstory. They're really prequels. The events of these 2 books are not interconnected at all, but they happen before the events of An Ember in the Ashes, which is the first book in the series. I did enjoy the stories of both of these. I thought it gave us a little bit more backstory, a little bit more glimpse into the lives of Laya and Elias, but I really, really, really don't like the art style. I don't like how these characters are drawn. I don't like anything about the art of these books. That's, again, a personal preference. Other people may really enjoy them, but I do really like the stories. I would say these are worth getting out from the library to read, but not necessarily something you need to own unless, I don't know, unless maybe you do like the art style, and that's okay too. And before we sign off here, I do have a couple books that will be going into my favorites basket of the month. I don't think this is going to make it onto my list, but I'm going to put it in the basket for now because I really, when I think about this book, I'm like, oh, I really enjoyed that. So it's going in the basket. Eddie Winston is Looking for Love is definitely going in the basket. And then I think I'm just going to have this whole series in the basket by the end of the year. So I will put A Reaper in the Gates in there as well. So 3 books are making their way to my favorites basket. I'm tempted to also put these 2 because I'm probably going to have a list for nonfiction and this will definitely be on it if I separate it that way. And if I have a separate list for middle grade, I really did love this one too. So why not? Why not just fill the basket with all the things? So they're all going into the basket. So that is it. That brings me to the end of these 11 books that I read in the month of August. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of these if you've also read them, or if any are now making their way to your TBR list. Let me know that as well. I always love chatting with you about books down in the comments and hearing which ones stand out to you or not. If you thought differently than me on any of them, I would love to hear that as well. I love having good conversations about books. And so let's chat in the comments below. And if you've made it to the end, but you're not feeling particularly chatty, that's okay. Leave a little spyglass emoji or that mystery hat dude, the Sherlock looking emoji, to represent the 3 books that I read of the 11 that were mysteries in August. And that just lets me know that you were here. It also boosts the engagement on this video, which helps more people to be able to see it. So thank you so much for watching and commenting and liking and all the things. I really appreciate you and all the different ways that you support me and my channel. You guys are the best. I love this corner of the internet, and I look forward to chatting with you in another video very soon. Bye.